If you searched LinkedIn profiles way back in 2009 with the keyword storytelling, you would have got about 100, a few hundred at most. The reason why I'm talking about 2009 is because I began storytelling in 2009 and I updated my LinkedIn profile. There were about a couple of hundreds of profiles with storytelling in its description. But today, when you search for storytelling in LinkedIn, LinkedIn throws up 1.5 million profiles. In 2009, when I spoke to business leaders about the usage of storytelling, the usual retort was, we are into serious business, why would we use storytelling? But the narrative has changed today too. We want to be telling stories about our organization, our people, our culture, our values, and our vision. That's how storytelling has evolved in the last decade, and it has become mainstream. For instance, today you have chief storytelling officers in organizations like Microsoft, SAP, and Wine Secrets. Nike, for instance, was probably the only company that had a chief storytelling officer way back in the 90s. Because the essence of Nike is all about being personal. Your personal stories, as personal as it can get. Let's do it. When I started posting in social platforms, I used to get a lot of views initially, but not a lot of engagements in the form of conversations or discussions. I started wondering why. Then I realized people do not know who I am or how handsome I am. That's when I changed tack, and then I started putting in personal stories and experiences. And I started getting a lot of engagements on top of the views. Now people know who I am, and they start to care, and they wanted me to succeed. They wanted to come back again and again, and then consume the content that I was writing. That's the power of personal stories. I was about 8 years old. I, along with 8 of my friends, wanted to start a cricket club. The very first thing that we wanted to do was, we wanted to buy a bat. So we went to a nearby sports store and then inquired about a bat, and it costed us $180. So we went back home, the 9 of us, and asked our parents for money. We were able to collect about 90 rupees. We were short of $90. So we realized that it's not going to help. So we went back again to our parents, and then only 2 of us were able to collect another 10 rupees. So we were still short of 70 rupees. So we went back to the sports shop and we asked that guy if he can give the bat to us for 110 rupees, and then we'll pay the remaining 70 rupees the next month. The guy did not agree. However, he told us that he can reduce the price of the bat to 160 rupees. We were still short of 50 rupees. So I came up with an idea that each one of us would contribute 1 rupee per day, and in 6 days we would have that money to go and buy that bat. Those days even 1 rupee was a big issue, and we couldn't arrange that 1 rupee on a daily basis. We knew that we were going to get the bat, but we didn't know where the money was going to come from. Those were initial days of television, and not every house had a TV. And they used to show regional movies every Sunday evening, and all of us used to sit at one person's house and then watch it. In one of those movies, there was a scene in which a few unemployed youth go around the neighborhood collecting old newspapers, stating that they need it for packaging. They sell those old newspapers, and with that money, they buy food and eat. The moment we saw this scene, we knew where the money was going to come from for our cricket club. So we looked at each other, and the next day, we went and collected old newspapers from all the houses in our building, and in all the houses in the entire street and in our neighborhood. We collected tons of newspapers, and we sold all of them. And we not only ended up buying the bat, we bought the entire cricketing kit that we needed. The pads, the gloves, the stumps, the mat, everything that we wanted for our club. And then we launched this cricket club, and then we invited all those people who contributed old newspapers for the cricket club. And then we named the cricket club as Eagle Eyes Cricket Club. Till such time that I was in the neighborhood, the activities of the cricket club was fully funded by the old newspapers that people gave away for free. And eventually we changed the name of the cricket club from Eagle Eyes Cricket Club to Old Newspapers Cricket Club. This story kind of defines the kind of person that I am. Right, till date, I have had 8 startups. 1, I have had a successful exit. 1 was a fire sale, and I'm currently involved with 2, and the remaining 4 have failed. So I've always found a workaround to all the challenges and the issues that I faced being an entrepreneur. This is an everyday, powerful personal story, and I'm sure each one of you would have had similar experiences in your lives. Start telling them to make it more powerful. Now, how do you use these personal stories in a business context? Let me give you an example. There was this customer of mine who won a huge, prestigious project from a bank in the US, and they had to deliver that project in 8 weeks' time. So they assembled a team of 6 people from 6 different branches of their office at their Bangalore facility, and they were supposed to deliver this project in 8 weeks. A week had passed by. Nothing happened at all. Not just the project plan, they weren't even seeing eye to eye on anything, because these people are all similarly experienced and they were all in similar designations like project leads, tech leads, and they all had about 6 to 10 years of experience. So that's when the country manager called me up and said, this is a problem that I'm facing. Is that something that you could come and help me with? I asked him, why don't you do storytelling? To which he responded, if I could come there and do it for him. I said, I'm an outsider. It would be better that if you do it. However, I'll guide you through the process of doing it. So the next morning at 10 a.m., he called all of these 6 people for a meeting with an open agenda. And he opened the meeting with a story from his childhood. That childhood story had nothing to do with the kind of business that they were doing and the nature of job that they were doing. So he just told them a story from his childhood. And then he asked each one of them to tell a story from their childhood. The moment they started telling those stories, people started laughing, people started having conversations, and it acted as an icebreaker. Subsequent to that, this country manager told them a story about a challenge that he faced in the last 1 year in his work and how he overcame that. And then he asked each one of them to talk about a challenge that they faced in the past 1 year. The moment they started speaking about it, there was mutual respect among themselves. They started respecting each other, and then they started chatting up as well. And that's when there was only one problem that the country manager had now. He had to find a leader among these 6 people to lead the project. So that's when he took a break and he gave me a call and he said, you know what, this is going better than what I thought. So now I have to find a leader. How do I go about doing it? I just said, just ask each one of them how many siblings do they have. Whoever has got the maximum siblings, make them the leader. So he went back in, and there was one of those girls in that group of 6 who said that she grew up in a joint family with 8 cousins. And that was given as a reason, and she was made the leader. And by the time the meeting ended at 12:30, they had a project plan in place, and needless to say, they delivered the project within time, right? So this is how personal stories can be used even in a business context. Many a times I get asked this question, why would somebody be interested in my story? I haven't had a very flowery life. I haven't had anything very, very interesting in my life. I haven't done anything inspirational. I haven't done anything which makes people sit up and take notice of me. And on top of it, I'm too scared to be standing in front of people and sharing my personal stories. All of these are valid questions. The only reason why you should be sharing personal stories is because it is relatable. People in the audience would be able to think of experiences that are similar to yours, and most likely they would feel better about their lives after having heard your story. Stories allow you to form relationships with your audience, and an invested audience wants you to be successful. That's how important personal stories are. But how do you find your personal stories? Let's look at some of these instances. Do you remember the first time that you fell in love? Do you remember the happiest moment with your spouse? Do you remember the first time you held your child? And how did you feel during your graduation ceremony? Do you remember the first time you took a paycheck? Do you remember the first time you bought a car? Do you remember the best adventure that you have taken in your life? And are there any happiest moments in your life that stands out? And are you proud of any contribution that you have made to the society to date? The common thread in all of these questions is the emotional investment. If I ask you to attach a value to each of these questions, I'm sure you would be willing to pay a premium. And these are 9 questions with which I began my personal storytelling journey. And how do you find yours? You can start with this at the template, or alternately there are multiple other techniques through which you can figure out your personal stories. And there's one very simple and exciting technique that I read in a book called Long Story Short, written by Margaret Littman. She talks about 3 statements. With these 3 statements, you would have your story bank of personal stories. The first statement is, I am blank. You fill that blank with as many statements as you can till you run out of them. For instance, you will start with very commonplace things like I'm tall, I'm dark, I'm handsome. Then you get into I'm interested in this, I'm interested in cricket, I'm fond of heavy metal music, I'm fond of blues. So you start going into slightly more complex things, right? So in essence, each one of you would be able to fill up at least 25 statements, of which 10 of them would be anecdote worthy. And the next statement that she talks about is I was dash. You fill that up with as many statements as you can till you run out of statements. For instance, I was scared of the dark. I was always the first person to go and attend a networking meeting. I was always the first person to ask a question in a conference. So these are kind of statements that you fill up. And I'm very sure that each one of you would be able to fill up at least 25 such statements, of which 10 of them would be anecdote worthy. And the third statement that she uses is dash is the story of my life. Here you may probably not get about 25 statements. You would probably end up with like 4 or 5 statements. In a sense, you have about 25 personal stories with these 3 statements, right? So and that's a good number for you to start your personal storytelling journey. Just remember, after 5,000 years, people may not remember what presentations and spreadsheets that you made today. But if you tell a really powerful story, there's a chance they might. Thank you.